Hi guys, it's Kendra from Crafty Kendra, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is bring in a piece of designer series paper, and this piece of paper is from the Candlelight Christmas designer series paper pack. It measures 5 1/4 inches by 4 inches. What we're going to do is bring in our tabletop trimmer with the 5 1/4 inch side against our ruler. We're going to bring it down to 4 inches. Then I'm going to bring in a piece of Very Vanilla, and this piece measures 4 inches by 1 inch. And we're just going to run a strip of snail at the top and a strip of snail at the bottom. Going to bring in our piece that we cut off, and it measures 4 inches by 1 1/4. Remember, it's the piece that we cut off here, but we're going to flip it over so that the brown pattern shows. And we're just going to line it up against the edge, just like that. And you'll notice that there's still Very Vanilla here with some sticky strip. And then we're just going to bring in the other half of our paper and press it down. This way I get a perfect 4 inch by 5 1/4 inch mat for my card, but I'm not using a whole piece of Very Vanilla on my back. After we've done that, we're going to bring in our Primrose Petals stitched satin ribbon, and we're just going to tie a knot. Alright, I finished tying my knot. Now I'm just going to trim off the edges. Now don't throw away these scrap pieces, because I'll be having some Valentine's Day cards that use these, so be sure to keep them. What we're going to do is we're just going to scoot our bow over more towards the right side, and then we're going to set this piece aside. We're going to bring in a scrap piece of Very Vanilla, and what we're going to do is end up stamping the gingerbread man, the candy cane, and the coffee mug from the Sensational Season stamp set. First, we're going to go ahead and stamp the candy cane, and we're stamping that in real red. Okay. Then I'm going to bring in Lucky Limeade, and I use Lucky Limeade for the coffee mug. Alright, I'm going to stamp the coffee mug again because I forgot to bring in my chocolate chip marker after I inked it up and color in the hot chocolate in our mug. There we go. Okay, since I messed up and had to stamp my mug again, I brought in another piece of scrap Very Vanilla to stamp my gingerbread man in. And we will be stamping him in Early Espresso. And with my gingerbread man, I want to make sure that I get him really nice and dark. So after I stamp him on the paper, I just bring in my Stamp-A-Majig and hold it in place. And re-stamp him a couple times. Just like that. So he's really nice and dark. And now that we've done that, we're going to bring in the Holiday Collection framelits. And using Post-its, we're just going to stick the framelit over our stamped image, centered. I'm using the sticky portion of the Post-it. We're just going to keep the framelit stuck in position so that it doesn't slide whenever we cut it out using our Big Shot. And then we'll just run these through the Big Shot. I've already gone ahead and done that ahead of time. So here are the pretty die cut pieces. What I'm going to do is we're just going to flip them over. And you can see I reused a little paper with my candy cane and my mug. But that's why there's two sides to paper, right? Just gonna put adhesive on all of those and bring back in our page layer. The first piece I add is the candy cane. Then I bring in the gingerbread man. And then last is the mug. And I tuck it ever so slightly under the ribbon, just like that. Pull down our ribbon just a little bit so that we can use our crumb cake, ink pad, and a sponge dauber. And we're just going to lightly sponge the edges of the top piece of Designer Series paper. And this is just so it blends into our card base a little better. Alright, and when we're done doing that, we're going to flip this piece over. Well, slide up our ribbon first. Flip that piece over and add a dimensional to each corner and one in the center. Gonna remove the backings. And set it aside. In the meantime, I'm going to bring in my card base, which is Old Olive, and it measures 8.5 inches by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4 to make a standard size card. I'm going to bring in this layer, and we are going to center it onto our card base. Just like that, pressing down where our dimensionals are. Set it aside again. Here I have another piece of Berry Vanilla, and it measures 3.5 inches by 2 inches. Using a little bit of snail, I'm touching it to remove some of the tack. We're just going to hold it in place when I bring in our greeting. Now our greeting reads, "Hot cocoa, candy canes, gingerbread men, what a treat. But without our friends, the season isn't complete." This is actually a stamp that I made using Stampin' Up's personalized stamps. they're in the catalog and you see them as address stamps, but you are given a maximum of 32 characters per line, and you can have anywhere from 1 to 4 lines. So this is what I made to go specifically with the Sensational Season stamp set, because I wanted a greeting that really tied in all the images in that set. So we have that, and I've already stamped it onto my image sheet. So we're just going to stamp it about an inch or so from the bottom of our cardstock. Bring in our Stampin' Majig to mark our place. I'm going to be stamping it in Primrose Petals. There we go. I'm going to bring in the Snowflake stamp from the Make a Mitten stamp set and our Versamark ink. Okay, and we're not going to be embossing, but Versamark is great to do watermarks. So I'm just going to add a little bit more texture to this paper by adding the snowflakes to it. Okay, and after I've stamped that, then I'm going to bring in, and you can see the light just catch those snowflakes just a little bit because the ink is wet. Whenever it dries, it'll just be slightly darker than the cardstock is now. Just going to cut up about 1/2 inch in the center of the paper, up about 1/2 inch. Then from each point to the top of that cut to create a banner, just like that. Going to bring back in my sponge dauber and crumb cake ink pad and ink the sides of the banner. Okay. Now I'm going to flip it over and add some snail to the back. And whenever you add the snail, you want to make sure that you leave about 1/2 inch from the top of the banner without snail. That way you can bring your banner up and line it up with the top of your card base, not the layering piece, and not worry about it sticking down. Oops. Need to get it over just a little bit more. There we go. Just like that. For the inside of our card, I have a 4 inch by 5 1/4 inch piece of Very Vanilla, and you can see on the video how I've already stamped the same little snowflakes in Versamark. Now I'm just going to go around the edge and sponge it with crumb cake. And you'll notice that I haven't had to re-ink my sponge dauber yet. Just depends on how dark you want it to be. I'm going to flip it over and add some strips of snail and then center it on the inside of our card. Okay, now what we're going to do is use some Dazzling Details. This is the Cherry Cobbler Dazzling Details. We're just going to put little dots on the gingerbread man for his gumdrops. And then going to touch every other stripe just a little bit on the candy cane. On the original card, I used the just the regular dazzling details. It's just clear glitter. On the candy cane this time I decided to use the cherry cobbler. Got a little too much, so I'm just gonna suck some back up. There we go. And I don't have it handy. If I did, I would use I would just put a little bit and then use my paper piercer to move it around. But anyway, we're gonna bring in the original dazzling details, and we're just gonna put one drop right in the center of the snowflake on our hot chocolate cup. Here we go. And please remember that it takes a little while for the dazzling details to dry, so please plan ahead for that. But this is our project for the day. I hope that you enjoyed it, and please stay tuned for more tutorials. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching.